Good day, everyone. Welcome to the webinar series on selected topics in the system of national accounts. My name is Pınar Uçar with the United Nations Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific. I will be facilitating our webinars and discussions over the next 3 days as we go through the program together. I hope all of you can hear me okay. And I hope everybody, as I mentioned, has joined the room of their choosing as far as the interpretation is concerned, whether it is Russian or English. Before going into some housekeeping items and some of the logistics for the next 3 days, I would like us to move to first agenda item, which is a short opening from our director, Ms. Sharma. Good day. Thank you for joining us. Without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Dr. Sharma. Please let me introduce her. Currently, she is the director of the Statistical Institute for Asia and the Pacific. Prior to her joining institute, she served as Director General Statistics at the National Statistical Office of the Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation in India, after having served in several other capacities. She managed the human resource development through capacity development and training both in India and across the globe, in close coordination with international agencies such as United Nations Statistical Division, International Monetary Fund, UNSIAP, World Bank, and others. She holds a Doctor of Philosophy, Master and Bachelor of Science degrees in Maths and Statistics from University of Lucknow, India. Dr. Sharma, floor is yours.
Good morning, good afternoon, all of you. And it's such a pleasure to welcome you all again on this webinar. The first one we had on environment accounts, and some of you must have been present there also. So I really welcome all the participants from Afghanistan, from Armenia, Azerbaijan, Kazakhstan, Kyrgyzstan, Mongolia, Russian Federation, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan in this very important 3-day webinar on the system of national accounts. We all know that the system of national accounts is so important, and it is the internationally agreed standard set of recommendations on how to compile the measures of economic activity in accordance with the strict accounting conventions based on economic principles, which are expressed in terms of a set of concepts, definitions, classifications, and accounting rules. Most important indicator compiled using the system of national accounts is, of course, the national income, we all know as statisticians. And as such, this system of national accounts is used for monitoring the behavior of the economy, microeconomic analysis, and international comparison. On the second day, as we have already, Pinar was already saying that we are going to have, this webinar is going to be for 3 days. So on the second day, a very important topic of the sequence of accounts for institutional units and sectors, displaying how income is generated, distributed, and used throughout the economy will be discussed. We all know and we agree that to ensure the relevance of any accounting system, or for that matter, any system, and for the purposes of economic analysis and policy making on a continuous basis, constant research, innovation has to be carried out, and on a very periodic basis, to reflect the real changes which are taking place within economies, the evolution of financial and fiscal instruments, and the improvements of accounting methodologies appropriately towards the SNA 2025, like what all research, what all changes, what all amendments will go, and what all discussions are going on for the SNA 2025 will form the part of the discussions on the third day. So I thank the Russian Federation, the ROSSTAT, the Statistics Division of ESCAP, and my very dedicated team in UNSIAP for all the work which they have done in collaboration, and hope you will find all the participants. You will find this series very interesting and useful. And as and when you take, after attending this webinar series, if there is anything when you're trying to work on it back home in your countries, you can always get back to our team in SIAP and they will be there to help you. Thank you so much.
Dr.
Pinar,
Sharma,
over to you.
thank you very much, Dr. Sharma. Thank you very much for your opening remarks and your thoughts on system of national accounts. Now, without further ado, before we get into today's agenda, let me share some thoughts about what we'll be doing over the 3 next days. I encourage you to put your questions, interventions, and comments on chat box. You are all muted, but we can communicate through the chat. And then if you want to take the floor, please put it on the chat again. Our first agenda will be SNA Framework, SNA 2008 Framework. We will talk about basic concepts and definitions. We will talk about the SNA Framework, overall SNA Framework, and then we will talk about the basic concepts and definitions, accounting rules, institutional units and institutional sectors in SNA. Tomorrow, at the second day, we will talk about the second set accounts, and I will also provide some numerical examples. And the last day, on Thursday, we will talk about the updates on SNA 2008 and towards 2020-25 agenda. Alek Niyasulu from ESCAP Statistics Division will be with us and will deliver the part of the presentations. And any question? Before we get into the first presentation, any question? I will share the first presentation and the presentations as you know, presentations are translated in the Russian. All of you, you should have received the link of the event page. If you would like to go through with the Russian version, please download the presentation from the event page and then follow the presentation through that. Yes, thank you very much. Okay, what is System of National Accounts, particularly 2008 version? System of National Accounts is the internationally agreed standard set of recommendations on how to compile measures on economic activity. The SNA 2008 was prepared under the auspices of the Intersecretariat Working Group on National Accounts, which consists of 5 organizations: ROSSTAT, International Monetary Fund, OECD, United Nations Statistics Division, and the World Bank. The SNA is designed to provide information about the behavior of institutional units and the activities in which they engage, namely production, consumption, the accumulation of assets in an analytically useful form. At the heart of the SNA is the production of goods and services. Goods and services produced in the economy must be consumed, used for capital formation or exported, while all goods and services used within the economy must be produced in the economy or imported. This is the fundamental of the SNA and the fundamental of production of goods and services. So in basically the outputs produced in the economy should be consumed and saved. The main characteristics of the national accounts, system of national accounts are: the first one is universality. National accounts constitute a universal system which takes into consideration the specific circumstances existing in different economies. And transparency, national accounts are transparent and then has a uniform base. National accounts are harmonized statistics. They employ concepts and classifications that are also used for other social and economic statistics. And flexibility, the SNA incorporates statistical accounts, which offers evidence of its flexibility. System of national accounts aims at describing a national economy and how it works. This is a schema of the national economic circuit. We have financial institutions, consumers, households, governments, producers, and enterprises. You will see all the arrows. We will talk about on this more tomorrow on the sequence of accounts. You can also see here the imports and exports from the rest of the world. SNA answers who takes action in the economy, what do they do, why do they take action, and how are the actions known? And again, main concepts of the 2008 SNA. When we say who, we refer to the economic agents that perform activities in the economy. And in 2008 SNA, it means that the terms are institutional units, institutional sectors, and total economy, and the rest of the world. When we say what, we refer to the transactions and other flows and stocks, which are the objects of the economy. In SNA, the terms are transactions and other flows, assets and liabilities, products, and producing units. When we say why, it refers to the reason why an economic agent takes an action. And then SNA 2008 lists the classification by purposes of expenditure. And the question of how refers to the recording of who, what, and why. SNA explains the rules for accounting, recording, time of recording, valuation, and consolidation and netting. Okay, the first question, who? Institutional units and sectors, total economy and rest of the world, enterprises, establishments, and industry. We will talk about this in the first part of our presentation. Before moving to the next slide, I would like to hear from you. I would like you to introduce yourself in brief and what you are doing, which departments are you working, and then what you are doing in terms of national accounts, compilation, and dissemination. Yes, who would like to take the floor first? Yakubova from Uzbekistan and Yunusova. Ratana, are we able to give them the floor?
Yes, they can unmute themselves at any time.
Yes. Participants, you can unmute yourself.
Дорогие коллеги.
Good day, dear colleagues. I would like to say thank you to all the organizers.
Wait a little bit, I will open the interpretation first. Yes, start again, please. Yunusova. Are you Yakubova or Yunusova?
So my name is Yunusova.
Yes.
Good day, dear colleagues. First of all, I would like to thank all the organizers for organizing this webinar. We're very happy to take part in this seminar. My name is Yunusova Mahmouda. I'm working in the Department of National Accounts. in the auxiliary accounts division. I'm the deputy head of a division, and my job is to formulate the accounts for capital and other areas. Now I would like to give the floor to my colleague, Madam Yakubova. Good day. My name is Yakubova Hirovna. I work as in the National Accounts Department. Our division is accumulation and auxiliary accounts, subsidiary accounts. I'm working on the formation of auxiliary supplementary accounts and accounts of production in sections R, Q.
Yes, great.
Thank you.
Yakubova,
Thank you.
how long have you been working in the national accounts? How many years?
5 лет уже. 5 лет.
5 years.
5 years.
More than
Yunusova?
5 years, yes.
What about you?
Я работаю уже 3 года.
I'm working here for about 3 years.
3 years, yes. Great, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What about the other participants who would like to take the floor? Please unmute yourself.
Good morning, everybody. I am Seda Movsisyan. I work in the Statistical Committee of the Republic of Armenia in the division of national account. Other specialists.
Seda, which version of SNA are you using in Armenia?
We are use SNA 2008.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. And Ms. Arus, please unmute yourself.
Good morning.
Good morning.
My name is Arus Tonapetyan. I am from Armenia. I work in the Statistics Committee, specialist in macroeconomic indicators and national accounts. Have a good day.
How long have you been working in national accounts?
50 years.
15? 15 years.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Any other participants? Do you want to share your experience with us? Okay, then we can continue with our presentation. We will talk about the institutional units in SNA 2008. Yes, next slide, please. Yes. Institutional unit is an economic entity that is capable in its own rights of owning assets, incurring in liabilities, and engaging in economic activities and in transactions with other entities. What are the characteristics of institutional units? First of all, it is entitled to own goods or assets in its own right. It is therefore able to exchange ownership of goods or assets in transactions with other institutional units. It is able to take economic decisions and engage in economic activities for which it is itself held directly responsible and accountable at law. It is able to incur liabilities on its own behalf, to take on other obligations or future commitments, and to enter into contracts. And it has a complete set of accounts, including a balance sheet of assets and liabilities, or it will be possible and meaningful from economic viewpoint to compile a complete set of accounts if required. We have two types of institutional units. First one is persons or a household. These are a group of persons who share the same living accommodation, who pool some or all of their income and wealth, and who consume certain types of goods and services collectively. And the second type of institutional units are legal or social entities. A legal or social entity is one of whose existence is recognized by law or society independently of the persons or other entities that may own or control it. In respect of legal units, the SNA 2008 distinguished three main categories. These are corporations, non-profit institutions, and governments. What are the corporations? Corporations are entities capable of generating profits or other financial gain for their owners, are recognized by law as separate legal entities from their owners, who enjoy limited liability and are set up for purposes of engaging in market production. Non-profit institutions that are created for the purpose of producing goods and services, but whose status does not permit them to be a source of income, profits, or other financial gain for the units that establish, control, or finance them. And government units are legal entities established by the political process. They have legislative, judicial, or executive authority over the other institutional units given, within a given area. The principal functions of government units are to assume responsibility for the provision of goods and services to the community or to individual households, and to finance their provision out of taxation or other incomes, to redistribute income and wealth by means of transfers, and to engage in non-market production. Institutional units are grouped together into institutional sectors on the basis of their principal functions, behavior, and objectives. We have 5 main institutional sectors. So non-financial corporations, financial corporations, general government, households, and non-profit institutions serving households. This is the allocation of a unit to an institutional sector. So I will start from here. Is it a household or institutional unit? If the answer is yes, it's a household. If it says no, we have a question here, important question. Is it a market producer? If the question is yes, does it produce financial services? If yes, it is financial corporations. If it is no, non-financial corporations. Okay, we will get back to main question again here. Is it a market producer? If it is no, we are asking another question. Is it controlled by government? If yes, it is general government. And if it is no, it's the non-profit institutions serving households. So total economy is defined as the entire set of resident institutional units. And if you want to mention about the economic territory of a country does not coincide exactly with its geographical territory. The term economic territory means the geographical territory administrated by a government within which persons, goods, services, and capital move freely. Transactions between resident and non-residents are grouped together in a single account, which is called the rest of the world account. In order to obtain a complete accounting for the economic behavior of resident units, the rest of the world account is a must. And then what do we mean with the residence? The residence of each institutional unit is the economic territory with which it has the strongest connection. In other words, it's center of the predominant economic interest. The concept of resident is not based on the citizenship or legal criteria. And it requires of being engaged for an extended period, usually more than 1 year, in economic activities in this territory. Yes, some clarifications on residence. A household is resident when it maintains a dwelling that the members of households treat and use as their principal residence. All individuals who belong to the households are also residents. There are several special cases for considering households still residents. Students continue to be residents in the territory in which they were residents prior to the studying abroad, and patients going abroad for the purpose of medical treatment if the treatment takes a year or more. Crews of ships, aircrafts, oil rigs, space stations that operate outside a territory or across several territories, diplomats, military personnel, and other civil servants employed abroad in government enclaves, cross-border workers who maintain their principal dwelling in the national territory, refugees when they do not change their home territory regardless of their legal status or intention to return. A corporation or quasi-corporation is considered as resident if it maintains at least one establishment where it plans to operate over a long period of time, at least 1 year. Let me check if there is any comment on the chat. Okay, we can continue with the next slide. Actually, before moving this slide, I would like to ask some question to the participants. Can you stop sharing screen, Ratana, please? Thank you very much. Who would like to take the floor? Susanna, are you here? Are you able to turn on your camera? And please turn on, unmute yourself. And from Uzbekistan, Geneva. Yakubova, are you able to turn your camera?
Да,
Yes.
вас мы слушаем.
Thank you very much. And I would like to give the floor to Geneva. Yakubova, please mute yourself. I would like to give the floor to Geneva first. Yakubova, please mute yourself. Yeah, and then Geneva, please unmute yourself. Yes, hello.
Здравствуйте.
How are you? Who is speaking, Geneva or
Слышно меня, да?
Rahmetuleva?
Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me?
Can you hear us?
Да, да.
Yes, I can hear you. Please go ahead.
Yes, please briefly introduce yourself. What's your name, Geneva or Rahmetuleva?
Меня зовут Ганиева Махбуба.
My name is Mehmet Ganeva. I work at the Microeconomic Indicators Department in charge of the estimate for shadow economy.
Mm-hmm. How long have you been working in this section, this macroeconomic?
2 года.
For 2 years.
2 years, okay. So how do you compile the macroeconomic indicators? Does it require any survey or do you get the data from the other departments? Or you use economic census, or can you briefly tell us?
Для оценки валового внутреннего продукта мы
In order to estimate the GDP, we receive data from other departments. For the shadow economy, our estimates are based on special surveys that we ran in order to estimate the scale of the shadow economy.
So what are the name of those surveys? If you may remember.
Они проводились по каждому виду отрасли по отдельности.
We conducted these surveys separately for different segments of the economy, for the industry, for agriculture, for the construction sector, and for services, as well as trade. So we had these different surveys, and this was also the name of the surveys.
Mm-hmm. How do you select your sample, Geneva? For a specific, let's say there's a specific survey on trade. How do you select your sample?
Мы берем перечень перечень юридических лиц, которые прошли регистрацию из налоговой.
We have the list of legal entities that are registered with the tax department. Those are the individual entrepreneurs that were registered with the tax authorities. We take 10% and then run a survey on the individual selected.
Okay, thank you very much. Rahmetullah, do you want to add anything? And maybe you can tell us which SNA are you using? Are you using SNA 2008? Yeah, let me see your face. Yes. Are you working in the same department?
Здравствуйте, меня зовут...
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
My name is Gulnur Rahmatullaeva. I work in the same department. I work on the, have been working for 6 years, and very pleased to meet you. I don't work on the same issues. I work on a different set of issues.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Thank you. Ratsana, we can go back to our presentation. Yes. Enterprises, establishments, and industries. An enterprise is the view of an institutional unit as a producer of goods and services. An enterprise may be a corporation, a quasi-corporation, a non-profit institution, or an uncorporated enterprise. A kind of activity unit is an enterprise or a part of as an enterprise that engages in only one kind of productive activity, or in which the principal productive activity accounts for most of the value added. A local unit is an enterprise or a part of an enterprise that engages in productive activity at or from one location. The combination of location and kind of activity of an enterprise result in what is called an establishment. An establishment is an enterprise or a part of enterprise that is situated in a single location and in which only a single productive activity is carried out, or in which the principal productive activity accounts for most of the value added. Establishments are also called local kind of activity units. An enterprise may have one or more establishments. On the other hand, an establishment can belong to one and only one enterprise. An SNA distinguish as an essential feature of its structure between the establishments that are market producers, producers for own final use, and non-market producers. So we will look at the definitions of these. So market establishments produce goods and services, mostly for sale at prices that are economically significant. Producers for own final use produce goods and services, mostly for final consumption or fixed capital formation by the owners of the enterprises in which they are produced. And non-market establishments supply most of the goods and services they produce without charge or at prices that are not economically significant. An industry consists of a group of establishments engaged in the same or similar kinds of activity. The most important criteria used for the classifying industries is the type of goods and services produced. So enterprise is the main unit for national accounts because it represents the institutional unit for which production accounts are prepared and value added is estimated. Aggregating value added over activities is one of the main activity of national accounts, since this will directly yield the gross domestic product. Yes, this is the end of the slide. And I would like to hear some words from the other participants. Bektorova, would you like to take the floor? Toksan Bektorova from Kazakhstan. Toksan, are you here?
Здравствуйте, да, я вас слышу. Извините, в настоящее время камеру не смогу подключить.
Yes, I can hear you, but unfortunately I cannot turn my video.
Oh, it's okay. It's okay. Toksan, please introduce yourself and then your experience with national accounts or surveys to compile the gross value added or other economic indicators. Yes, floor is yours.
Здравствуйте, меня зовут
Good afternoon. My name is Tegjan Tulova. I work at the Bureau of National Statistics on the national accounts in Kazakhstan. I work on the subsidiary accounts and on accumulation accounts. I've been working on national accounts for 5 years. Earlier, I worked at the regional statistics department. I was in charge of the methods of accounting for revenues, and now I participate in compiling distribution of primary and secondary revenues accounts up to accounts for capital operations. Also work on financial accounts. We publish the accounts, and we have some pilot projects as well, and we plan to start publishing the subsidiary accounts in the healthcare. In terms of GDP, we use data from industries, for all industries, and we receive this data from our respondents from the industries. We have formulas that we use and apply towards different industries such as agriculture, construction, etc. And for intermediary consumption, we also rely on the industry statistics. And we also have our own assessment for the non-visible part of the economy. And
okay,
depending on the various
you have your own
estimates.
Activity. You are saying that you have your own your estimates for the informal economy.
Да, у нас также.
That's right. We have developed our own methodologies, and they're available on our website.
I appreciate if you can share the link with us on the chat. When you are available, we will have it.
Мы можем отправить ссылку на нашу.
Certainly, we can provide a link to a methodology, but it's only available in Russian.
Okay, okay. So did you get any technical assistance from any regional or international organization to come up with these estimates? Or how was the collaboration in your country to come up with estimates? It's not easy to produce estimates on the informal economy.
Да, в 2012-2016 годы у нас проводился проект ROSSTAT.
From 2012 to 2016, we worked with the World Bank and with the German Statistical Bureau and with the Czech Statistical Bureau. And that's how we developed these methodologies.
Okay.
So we have different methodologies for illicit types of activity and for the invisible part of the economy, as we call it.
Yeah, great, great. Thank you very much. Yes, thank you very much for sharing your experience. And then we will have a break now. And then we will meet again after 10 minutes. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the second part of our presentation. I saw a question here in chat. I was answering to that question. The question is the resident and an economically active population, if I didn't get it wrong, an enterprise may not be active for a period, but it's the but it should be recorded. And then statistical business register mechanism is the great source, great tool to identify those enterprises. And then take out the contribution. I shouldn't say contribution here. Take out them from the sample. And then produce a new estimate on the gross value added. I hope this answers your question. Yes, we can continue with our presentation. Ratan, I appreciate. Yes, thank you very much. We will talk about the what now. We talk about who, the institutional units and sectors in the economy, and then we will talk about what they are producing, these institutional units and sectors. We will talk about stocks and flows, and then I also would like to ask you some questions again. Yes, the SNA is a system of accounts designed to measure stocks of and the changes in the economic value and to identify the person, group of persons, legal or social entity with claims on the economic value. Stocks measure economic value at a point in time, and flows measure changes in economic value over a period of time. Stocks are a positioning or holdings of assets and liabilities at a point in time. The SNA records stocks in accounts, balance sheets, compiling the respect of the beginning and the end of the accounting periods. However, stocks are connected with flows. They result from the accumulation of the prior transactions and other flows, and they are changed by the transaction and other flows in the period. An asset is a store of value representing a benefit or series of benefits occurring to the economic owner by holding or using the entity over a period of time. So what we mean here, carrying forward the value from one accounting period to another. Assets may be financial in nature or not. For almost all financial assets, there is a corresponding financial liability. And a liability is established when one unit, the debtor, is obliged under specific circumstances to provide a payment or series of payments to another unit, which is called creditor. In the economy, institutional units have various economic functions. They produce, consume, save, invest. The actions they undertake are aimed at creating, transforming, exchanging, transferring economic value, or changing the volume, composition, or value of assets and liabilities. So all these actions are economic flows. Transactions are economic flows that result from the interaction between institutional units by mutual agreements, and then they can take place within the institutional units or between establishments belonging to the same enterprise. The main types of transactions, these are transactions in goods and services, distributive transactions, transactions in financial instruments, and then other accumulation entries. Transactions in goods and services describe the supply of products and the use of products. So when we say supply of products, we mean the domestic output or imports. And then when we say use of products, we refer to the intermediate consumption, final consumption, capital formation, or exports. An example would be the output of shirts produced by an enterprise, the intermediate consumption of textile and buttons used in the production of the shirts, and investments in a new sewing machine. Distributive transactions, transactions by which the income generated in production, the value added, is distributed as compensation of employees, or as taxes on production and imports, or as property income to different institutional sectors and rest of the world. For instance, gross salaries paid by the enterprise manufacturing shirts to its employees. This is a distributive transaction. And distributive transaction also transactions by which the generated income is distributed as transfers between institutional sectors and the rest of the world. For example, a general insurance premium paid by the enterprise for the building where the shirts are produced. Transactions in financial instruments. These include acquisitions and disposal of financial assets and incurrence and net of liabilities. For example, manufacturing enterprise pays for the raw material by check with money from the deposit in national currency constituted in a bank. And other accumulation accounts, previous slide, please. Yes, other accumulation entries as a result of the transactions defined above, which enable the change in the net worth of an institutional unit or sector between the beginning and end of the accounting period. For example, consumption of fixed capital registered for the machinery using the production of bread in a bread factory. So we talk about, we are talking about flows, we talk about transaction, and then we will talk about the other economic flows now. Other economic flows are changes in the value of assets and liabilities that do not result from the transactions. Examples are losses to the natural disasters and the effect of price changes on the value of assets and liabilities. Flows and stocks are recorded on both sides of the accounts and balance sheets. A balancing item is derived as the difference between the sum of the entries on both sides of accounts or balance sheet. Balancing items have analytical significance or great importance. As a matter of fact, many important variables in national accounts are calculated as balancing item, and the most common one is value added. And our third questions, classifications. From the SNA point of view, purpose means the function relating to the type of need that the transaction or group of transaction aims to satisfy. Transactions are first analyzed in the SNA according to their nature. For certain sectors or type of transactions, they are analyzed by purpose in answer to the question, for what purpose? SNA recommends using the following classifications for functional analysis. First one is classification of individual consumption by purpose and of household final consumption expenditure, COICOP, and COFOC, classification of functions of government, used to classify consumption expenditure, other current expenditure, capital expenditure, and other government outlays. COPNI, classification of the purposes of non-profit institutions serving households, used to classify the same type of transaction as governments, and classification of outlays of producers by purpose. COP can provide information on the outsourcing of business services. And this is our next question, how? And then we will talk about the accounting rules here. Before that, any question from the participants? Any question, any intervention? I'm checking the chat now. Tosan, thank you very much for sharing the link. Participants, please make sure to check this link. This is the work done by Kazakhstan on illicit flows. And then the report from 2012 to 2016. And then they produced this report with the technical assistance from World Bank. And she mentioned an institution from Germany and then Czech Statistics National Office. Thank you very much. And any other interventions? Okay, I would like to hear from some participants again. I have heard from, start the video. So I have heard from Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and then Armenia. What about the other participants? Any participants from Mongolia? Do we have any participant from Mongolia? From Tajikistan? Please turn on your camera and then unmute yourself. Hello? Is any participant from Tajikistan? If you would like to take the floor, turn on your camera and then unmute yourself. Any participant from Azerbaijan? What about ROSSTAT? Kirill Petrov, would you like to take the floor?
Добрый день. Я вижу, что здесь присутствуют представители.
Good day. I see we have the representatives of national accounts here. Svetlana Parfenova, Julia Patutina. Maybe they would like to say something.
Okay. Svetlana. Gülsüm. Hello, can you hear me? Gülsüm. It seems nobody wants to talk. Aygül. Hope you are here.
Здравствуйте. Меня зовут Айгуль.
Good day. My name is Agul. I work just about 6 months. I'm like a fossil. Working with stocks and raw materials.
Are you from which country, Aygül? The country name is not mentioned here.
Kazakhstan.
Kazakhstan. Okay. Before joining before joining your institute, so what were you doing?
Я занималась в статистике цен.
I used to be a statistician.
May I ask which organization, or is it private sector, or?
Нет, почему? В статистике, в региональной статистике.
Regional statistics of prices in the regional statistical office.
So you were in the regional statistics office, you were working on prices, and then you joined the...
Да.
Yes, that's correct.
Now you are working on national accounts, you are working on stocks. close.
Да, да.
So, at the beginning of the conversation, you said, I think the first year is the transition period. So we are all statisticians. We have the background, mathematical backgrounds, but national accounts is a different area. It will take some time, please don't worry. We all have gone through this experience. So what are the things that bothers you? Yeah, let me ask in an honest way. What are the things you are not comfortable at this stage?
Те
What are the
проблемы,
issues you are not sure about the
те
concepts,
проблемы, которые
definitions,
возникают,
or
мы собираем, как бы мне помогают справиться.
Well,
Ну, мои
if we have any problems, my colleagues who work for a long time, they help me solve these problems.
Great.
So actually, we are solving it.
Great. It means you have a good coordination, collaboration in your institute.
Да, да.
Okay. Okay.
Yes.
Great.
Yes, that's correct.
Yes. Which version of SNA are you using in your country?
2008?
Yeah, 2008.
Mm-hmm.
Я бы хотела здесь добавить комментарий.
I would like to add a comment regarding the version of SNA. In order to adopt 2008, SNA 2008, we need to include into our accounts such aspects as a capitalization of research outputs. And we are currently working on that.
Great. So what kind of work, what are you doing to come up with those indicators? There's a difference between SNA 93 and then 2008. What are the actions you are taking, Toksan?
В настоящее время мы ведем экспериментальные.
Currently, we do experimental accounts, and we are analyzing the research outputs. We have a certain format, statistical format, which the enterprises that are doing scientific research, which they use to make the reports. We also have a list of establishments that the Ministry of Education and Science provides us with. And so we see those institutional units, and so we're trying to distribute them according to the sectors of economy and the research that they're working on. And we also receive data from different ministries. And the biggest problem that we have is a distinction between those research that bring economic benefits and those that don't, so in order to classify them. Because if those research that are capitalized, they bring economic benefit, and the others, they don't. So this is the main problem, how to distinguish. And maybe you could help us how to work in this direction, because sometimes it's not very easy to get this information. Sometimes we receive information that there is a kind of research going on and there is a report on that, but we don't always see the real economic benefit, whether this research will bring or brings economic benefit or not.
Thank you very much, Tozan. Is there any other country in Central Asia producing this capital research? Tosan, do you know, is there any country in the Central Asia producing the accounts you are working on?
Ну, насколько мне известно,
As far as I know, ROSSTAT, they were saying that they're using the SNA 2008. Maybe the representatives of ROSSTAT could share their views on how to distinguish between research that has economic benefit and that doesn't.
Yes, we would like to hear from the ROSSTAT representatives here. For the research activities, provide economic benefits. Any participant from ROSSTAT? We would like to hear from you. There are, yes. Yes, Elizaveta, there are some Russian names in the participant list. Are you able to recognize the participants from ROSSTAT? Maybe it is given in a parenthesis, or I don't know. Kirill mentioned some names. Would you like to take the floor? Kirill mentioned some names from the ROSSTAT. Anyway, then.
Коллеги, да, доброе.
Colleagues, good day.
Good day.
We have a division of international statistics. We will ask what their problem is, probably some technical issues. We see them, but we don't hear them. Okay, so we will comment in the chat when we are able to contact them. We are co-organizers. Our department is doing international statistics, so we would like our colleagues from the specialized branch to make their comments.
Okay, please write on the chat, and one of the reasons for organizing.
Да, благодарю, спасибо.
Yes, thank you. We will.
Thank you. One of the reasons for us to organizing this webinar series in coordination with the ROSSTAT is to share our experience all together, and then create a platform between the countries in Central Asia. Appreciate your comments on the chat. And then Toksan, so if we don't get any comment on this issue today, I will remind again tomorrow. And then maybe tomorrow you can also share us if you seek for any technical assistance from the international regional organization on this, from the enterprises producing economically significant products. Yes, now we can go back to our presentation. Yes, accounting rules. Transaction of economic agents of their actions So economic agents who, of their actions, what, undertaken for different purposes, why, are recorded in the SNA according to the clear rules. So this is the last question, how? These rules are related to the content of institutional units, resources, and uses, the valuation of transactions, the way and the time of recording them in a defined structure. There are three bookkeeping principles. One is vertical double entry bookkeeping, also known in business accounting as simple double entry bookkeeping. Horizontal double entry bookkeeping, and quadruple entry bookkeeping. So the vertical double entry business accounting is based on the principle of double entry, whereby one transaction requires two entries. In principle, one credit and one debit. Horizontal double entry. National accounts reflect mutual economic relationships between different institutional units based on horizontal double entry. This means that if an institutional unit provides something to another institutional unit, the accounts of both units will show the transaction as a resource in the accounts of one unit and as a use in the accounts of the other. As for example, the compensation of employees paid by the different economic units should be equal to the sum received by the employees. Quadruple entry. In principle, the recording of the consequences of an action as it affects all units and all sectors is based on the principle of quadruple entry accounting, because most transactions involve two institutional units. Each transaction of this type must be recorded twice by each of the two transactors involved. A social benefit in cash paid by a government unit to a household is recorded in the accounts of governments as a use under the relevant type of transfers and a negative acquisition of assets under currency and deposits. In the accounts of the household sector, it is recorded as a resource under the transfers and acquisition of assets under the currency and deposits. Time of recording. There are three moments when flows can take place, each of them defining a basis for the timing. Cash basis records cash flows at the time of these payments occur. Due for payment basis records flows at the time they are due to be paid. And accrual basis records flows at the time economic value is created, transformed, exchanged, transferred, or extinguished. SNA favors accrual accounting because the timing of accrual accounting is in full agreement with the way economic activities and other flows are defined in the SNA. And accrual accounting can be applied to non-monetary flows. For example, in May, a company delivers computers to a customer who will pay for it 30 days later. Under the cash method, the revenue from this sale will be recorded in June when the money will be received. However, the accrual method requires recording the income in May in the month when the transaction took place. Valuation. Under SNA, a transaction must be recorded at the same value through all accounts of all sectors involved. Transactions are valued at the actual price agreed upon by the economic agents. The basic reference for valuation in the SNA is current market prices. Transaction valuation methods used in the SNA are based on more than one set of prices depending upon how taxes and subsidies on products and also transports charges are recorded. A purchaser has two options to buy. The first one directly from the producer. In this case, the purchaser price may exceed the producer price by the value of any non-deductible VAT payable by the purchaser and the value of any transport charges on a good paid separately by the purchaser. And our purchaser, the other option for the purchaser, buy from a wholesaler or retailer. In this case, it is necessary to consider also the trade margins that the retailer will apply. So you see here the relationships between the prices. It just summarizes what I mentioned in the previous slide. Basic price plus taxes on products excluding invoice VAT minus subsidies on products is equal to producer price. Producer price plus VAT not deductible by the purchaser plus separately invoiced transport charges plus wholesalers and retailers margins is equal to purchaser prices. And then there's an example here. The enterprise produce cigarettes and then the value of the total production cost and the enterprise profit for a packet of cigarettes is 200 units. The enterprise must pay an excise duty, which is 20% applied to the value of each packet. The packet of cigarettes is sold to a retail trader. The transport cost is valued at 10 units and the trade margin is 20 units. In the country, the value of the tax is 20%. So evaluation at basic price is 200 units. And the evaluation at producer price. So what did we say about this? The evaluation at the producer price is equal to production at basic price plus taxes on products, which will be 200 plus the 20% of 200, 240 units. And the evaluation at purchaser price is the production at producer price plus transport cost plus trade margin plus value added tax again. Here, what is the producer price is 240 from the previous calculation plus transport cost is 10 plus trade margin is 20, and then value added tax is 20% of this, so we will get 324 units. So we will conclude, these are the last slides. We will conclude our presentation today with the production and output. Production is an activity carried out by an institutional unit that uses inputs of labor, capital, and goods and services to produce outputs of goods and services. There must be an institutional unit that assumes responsibility for the process and owns any goods produced as output, or is entitled to be paid or otherwise compensated for the services provided. This is important, a purely natural process without any human involvement or direction is not production in an economic sense. There are three types of output. So market output consists of output intended for sale at economically significant prices, output for final use, output this consists of products retained by the producer for its own use as final consumption or capital formation. And non-market output consists of goods and individual or collective services produced by non-profit institutions serving households or government that are supplied free or at prices that are not economically significant to other institutional units or the community as a whole. Yes, this was the last slides or our presentations, first year presentations. Tomorrow we will talk about the sequence of accounts. That's why I wanted to end our presentations with the definition of product and output, and then the type of outputs that are market output, non-market output, and then what was the last one? On final use. Yes, I would like to hear from your last words, particularly from the participants who haven't taken the floor yet. Yes, I'm going to disturb you again. Do we have any participant from Afghanistan? Do we have any participant from Afghanistan? Please, if possible, turn on your camera and then unmute yourself.
I don't think that we have any participants from Afghanistan.
Okay, thank you, Ratana.
There's
okay,
one person raising the hand.
Yes, yes, please.
Здравствуйте. Меня слышно, да?
Hello.
Can you hear me? Hello.
Yes, I can hear you. Hello, Jamilia.
Меня зовут Джамиля Авлиакулова, работаю.
My name is Jamilia Avliakova. I work at the Institute of Tax Research at the Ministry of Finance of Uzbekistan. My question pertains to the first part of the presentation, when we talked about residents within the national accounts. How do we treat migrant labor? Are they residents in the country where they work? And how do we determine how long have they been working abroad? If they work for longer than a year, what are the existing international recommendations about how to treat labor migrants? That's my first question. My first question is remittances. Those who work abroad and send money back, who work abroad for under a year or over a year, how do we make account of it? And also, and this is my first set of questions. My second set of questions pertains to the difference between corporations and quasi-corporations. And finally, my third question. On one of the slides, I can't recall which one, but you mentioned households and institutional households. Could you please explain the difference?
Yes, non-profit organizations serving households. This one?
Нет. Последний вопрос. Домашнее хозяйство и...
Households and institutionalized households. What is the difference between the two? You had a picture on one of the slides. Page 20. It says a household or an institutional household. What's the difference?
Yes, non-profit institutions serving households. Can we go back to the presentation, Ratana? I think, yes, this one.
Здесь речь идет о некоммерческих организациях, обслуживающих домашних...
Oh, so these are non-profit organizations that serve households. Okay, understood.
Yes, they are not aiming to...
тогда понятно, хорошо.
All right, then I understand.
Yes, yes. We can go back to definition if you like. Here, Ratana, can you go back to previous slides, please? Previous one, please. Yes. They are producing the non-profit institutions serving households. They are producing goods and services, but they are not using this source as an income or profits, or they don't aim at financial gain. They are just serving. I can give an example as a church. I can give this an example, or mosque. I can give an example as a non-profit institutions. For your question on cooperation and quasi-cooperation, I will give you a better example tomorrow. It's not in my notes. Yes, I have a good example on quasi-corporations. I appreciate if you wait my answer for tomorrow. And then, are you joining us tomorrow, Jamilia?
Да.
Yes, great.
Yes, I will.
Yes. And then you mean remittance, you're asking is 1 year or over 1 year, it makes a difference in national accounts?
Да, трудовые мигранты...
Yes. Migrant labor are considered residents of the country where they work. If under 1 year, then yes, they should be considered. But how do we account for it? What are the existing international recommendations in that regard? How do we determine how long have they been working abroad?
The standard is 1 year, actually. International standard is 1 year. Short-term workers, for example, they are not considered as the residents of the country for the short-term workers, and then other ones, standard is 1 year. And the remittance, I would like to give you an expanded answer on this remittance. I will also check the sources on balance of payments, and I will give you a better sources on remittance tomorrow. Remittances requires the, so you mean the remittance between, for example, an expat transferring money to their own country or to their families or the country which they are originally resident? You mean this one?
Да, например, для Узбекистана.
That's right. In Uzbekistan, we face the following issue. Many of our migrants, labor migrants, work in Russia. They work abroad, but we don't know how long they spend there. And the remittances have to be qualified depending on whether they've been working abroad for under a year, over a year. So when we calculate the GDP, how do we reflect this in our national accounts? And under what, on what accounts and what components of the accounts do we have to reflect that? And how do we do that?
Okay. Okay, thank you very much. So you are saying that you have workers in Russia, but you don't know, you don't have in your record, so how long they spend in that country, and you don't know how to treat them in national accounts in terms of compiling the accounts.
Ну, если я не ошибаюсь, если мои коллеги из статистики это подтвердят.
Yes. Perhaps Roskomstat knows how to do that, but I wanted to know if there is an international standard, how to take account of these remittances. And how do we consider residency of labor migrants? Or should we consider this as a primary revenue coming from the rest of the world?
Yes, balance of payment has an extended chapter on this. I will give you more information tomorrow. Any participants having the same experience? I would love to hear from the other participants who have the same experience. Hello, yes. I see a name on the screen. I'm not able to read it.
Меня слышно?
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
In ROSSTAT, we use data from the balance of payment where remittances are reflected, as well as all transfers abroad. Transfers from labor migrants, from foreign citizens are included in our salaries in compensation in the account in the primary account of revenue distribution, and this is based on the balance of payment.
Okay. Okay, thank you very much, Jamilia, for your question, and then thank you for the feedback from the participants. And then, as I said, balance of payments manual has more information on this. And then all the macroeconomic statistics are integrated. There's an harmonization between system of national accounts and balance of payment. Balance of payment records the transactions between residents and non-residents. So I will give you a wider, better explanation tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Спасибо.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. I'm going to wrap up our conversation today. My presentation is completed. Thank you very much for your kind responses and then questions. And I will see you tomorrow. We will talk about the sequence of accounts, as I mentioned, and then you are all, as I understand from your comments, you have all experience in national accounts, so we will calculate some indicators together, main aggregates together in national accounts, and then we will, I hope we will have more interaction tomorrow. So yes, thank you very much, and then see you tomorrow.